All right. Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins and Sean S.B. Alger is my guest today. Welcome, Sean. So great to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Right on. So, do you want to just chit chat a little bit while we're getting a few things set up? Rokfin is going live. And how's your music these days? And we're going to talk about shower curtains as well.
Well, music's pretty good because I got a little local set of guys band that we've been jamming for probably more than a year now, and we're starting to talk about at least getting out to an open mic or some kind of small introductory gig to putting on public performance somewhere. So that's fun. And we have a drummer who uses a cajon and a bunch of unique rhythm and percussion instruments instead of a regular drum kit. So I don't know if you've ever played in an actual rock and roll band or not, Beth. I mean, I assume you've at least been exposed to the environment, but I don't know if you've ever had to show up every week and play, and there's a drummer, bass player, guitar player, maybe more, maybe have keyboards and everything else. Well, the drummer, with all due respect to drummers, is always the most challenging situation to deal with. If you get an excellent drummer, usually they're not very good at managing their own volume. If they're really tight and good and stay on top of it, then they're just loud as hell. Or you get a guy that is good at managing his own volume, which usually means he comes from more of a jazz background. And so then maybe he just doesn't have that vibe, and so I feel like the hugest blessing of this band is that, well, A, it's a guy that I met through a men's yoga group that we were both a part of. And B, he like really has this intensely natural sense of rhythm. And so if you don't see him, it sounds, and he just bought a really fancy cajon. A cajon is like a box that you sit on that makes your, I mean, I've got one sitting here just in case.
I love cajons. They were all over Mexico. Is it in fact a Mexican drum?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've never looked at the history of the cajon, but this one has a snare inside of it, so depending on where you hit it,
Yeah.
So he just bought a really expensive, nice one, and so that changed his sound even more. But he's got like some congas in front of him and a cymbal, and he bought a hi hat, and sometimes he plays with sticks, and he has like little jinglers that he'll put on his finger or on his foot, and so he really has like the vibe. In a way, I think I like it better than a drummer, depending, I mean. It's all context is everything, we're just playing cover songs that we love for fun. We're not writing original compositions, we're not trying to make money. So we're not a bar band. It's just really, what, as Kurt Vonnegut would say, to make your soul grow. And we are to the point now where, you can just have a rehearsal and it can be very beneficial and fun, but it does hint at and point the way towards performance somewhere, other than just your rehearsal. And, right now we haven't even ever set ourselves up as if we were going to perform. We'd have to turn our backs on the guy playing his fancy cajon setup and face the imaginary audience. And, we've talked about all that stuff, and so I think we'll get there. We'll probably take these things out on the road and at least go to some open mics or do some small stuff. And so that's exciting because it used to be my one and only dream in the world to be a rock and roll musician. I'm glad I didn't do it.
Right, but great way to fold that in and have that experience, but not necessarily have to get lost in the rock and roll music industry, for example, which is totally hell.
Yeah, it's just literally satanic, in every definition of the word that you could imagine. It's just, I mean, I would say not on the more lower and middle levels. Probably there's lots of success and fun to be had, especially if you are someone who's still part of like the hedonistic party lifestyle. If you like to drink in bars and smoke weed and stuff like that, then probably there's lots of fun in that middle ground. But, of course, people have aspirations, I don't want to play in the bar. I want to be better than Robert Plant.
There you go. Nice. That's good. Yeah, and there's something about art that I always say there is no purpose in a vacuum. So you can create great art, but if it doesn't in some way influence and become not influence in our influencer society, but change someone, that they would listen and they would be moved and there would be something evoked within them, then it becomes it can become empty. So it's I think an inevitability to find ways to share it.
Right. And I agree totally. Like I make lots and lots of art that most people will never, ever see unless it gets published after I die or something, but then the stuff that I do share is all derivative of that in a good way. Sometimes derivative means a bad thing, but, I save zillions and zillions of drafts to get to one, shower curtain image that's good enough for me to upload and say, hey, I wonder if people might want to buy this one, So
Yeah. Well, that's what people don't realize, how much goes into it, how many versions there were, how many, back to the drawing board kind of thing. And they only see a finished product unless you're one of those artists who shares as you go. And you're actually very generous in putting out your work. The last thing that caught my attention so much as I would have loved to just buy art to put on my wall, it doesn't go on my wall. There's something about my walls. I'm scared of the posts and having it all come crashing down. And then, eventually I'll move. It could be 10 years or 20 years, but then it's going to be a little bit of a glitch.
No, I know, like this overthinking process is so common, right? Like I tell people, if I've, and I've sold some, IRL art for reasonable amounts of money to people that enjoy it for whatever reason. And I love having a picture of it at the house. And one of the guys, I messaged him, I sent him what I think is probably a draft of the picture he bought. And he's like, yeah, I know you said you wanted a picture, man, but I don't have it in any honored place. It's just sitting on my, my desk at work. And I'm like, but that is the honored place. That's great. Wherever it is fine. Obviously if it's shoved behind your dresser, I'd want you to at least pull it out and take a picture of it sitting on the ground. That's fine. But a lot of artists, my brother Adam, I remember him being deeply offended by where some of his art would arrive. He would go out of his way to make something for someone and give it to them as a gift, and then find out that, it's just hanging behind the door in their bathroom, or, whatever, some not perfect outcome. And it's easy to feel that way. Your little piece of yourself is in there. It's a really hard thing to decide as any creator. What are you creating that's really just for you somehow? It's either a hobby or it's personal. It's for you and your friends, your loved ones. And what are you willing to commercialize and make a part of whatever this everything's for sale society is? Me and Ben Balderson have talked about that with some of the beading and the metal, what do you call it? The wire work that he does,
Mm-hmm.
If you spend a whole year working on one piece, how do you price it? You can't price it. You can't price it according to any scale. What you're going to say, well, this one's $150,000 for a beautiful little necklace piece,
Right. Exactly. You can't charge by the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
we could get lost talking about just that.
Yes.
Why hourly is not really the best way to look at things.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how you can get a lot of starving artists. But here is the artwork that Sean made originally and tweaked it for me, because when I saw that he was offering the chance to get a shower curtain, this was right up my alley, because this is like a practical thing. I will see it every single day. I'm assuming I could wash it, that it will be, I'll be able
I hope
to.
so. You'll be the first one to receive one. So if the quality's not good, we may have to go back through the process and find a more substantial, what do they call it? Print-on-demand shower curtain company. And I'm willing to do that. If you get it and it's flimsy and it doesn't look good, then we're going to do it again,
There you go. I'm willing to experiment. I'm so excited. I imagine it should be here fairly soon, and I'm going to send you pictures. And yeah, this gorgeous artwork is going to match my bathroom perfectly, thanks to your little tweaks on there. And yeah, super excited. So if you also would like to have a shower curtain, I think there's other things that you can get your art on there too. There's like other elements that, what are they that you could put your stuff on?
Oh, I mean, there's, the process with this, the website is called Fine Arts America, and there's thousands of people on there. And so, of course, you can get all the most normal things, like just a paper print, or just a framed print with glass, or a matted framed print, or you can get like a canvas print, or you can get like an acrylic, which is hard, clear plastic with the printing on the back, so it looks like glass. And you may even be able to get actual glass. There's all these formats and medias that are just common for art in general, right? But then, there's stickers or coffee cups, or like a little phone charger thing, or I think there's yoga mats, and there's round rugs, and there's I think beach towels and hand towels, and all this kind of stuff now. So what I do is when this whole list is in front of me, you can see it and adjust it as you're going. So I'll really only graduate a piece of art into any one of those categories I just mentioned based on the compositional aspect. Like you look at it, here's the thing, like this thing that I'm selling you for a shower curtain, I don't think I could in good faith make it into a yoga mat, because either you'd have to stretch the art so that it becomes distorted, or you'd have to clip that narrow piece out of the middle that's the shape of a yoga mat. And I just don't see, like, I wouldn't truncate what I call the heart in the middle of this piece, cut the top and bottom off of it. I mean, it might be okay, but to me, it's not quite good enough, and so a lot of the stuff, t-shirts, there's t-shirts and stuff on there, and some of them look really cool. And some of it, to me, it just looks, I hate t-shirts. It's just a pet peeve that someone has just made a square and the image is there, to me, it just looks like, like a 7th grade boy decided he was going to make his own t-shirt, and I just don't, I just don't like it. So I don't know. As an artist, to me, composition is the main thing.
Like, yes, exactly. Yeah, there's a limit. Yeah.
If you don't start with the compositional aspect of whether or not things have balance, the objects that you're showing or the shapes plus the colors, then nothing you can do will fix it later, because the eye's either wandering off the page or it's seeing something that it doesn't like,
Yeah.
The eye is never satisfied. So if you give it a reason to be even slightly dissatisfied, it is. We all know. If you look in the mirror and your bang turns 1/16 of an inch the way you don't want it to, you're tempted to even cut it off with the scissors to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. You know me well. There you go. Yeah.
Well, it's not just you. It's everyone that has any sense of their personal appearance. I mean, I guess loggers in Oregon maybe don't care, but I would say that's not true, though. If you put a speck of pink paint in their beard, they'll care.
Right. There you go. Yeah, everyone has their edge. And so there is a link here in the chat. You can click right on that link, and I imagine it will take you right to the shower curtains, but it will also give you access to all of the other different kind of things. I think towels would be in order since this is a bathroom art.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. If you want to add towels,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'd be super fun. And hello, Artist Seer. Nice to see you. And Sarah G is here. And she says, best yoga mat is a shower curtain size. Yes, it's true, right? Yoga mats are stupid. You fall off those things. You're always, I try to have one on my balcony and in the spring say it's really dirty and crappy and you don't want to be on the boards with your bare body. Not that I'm totally bare, but I can be. But I agree. They should be bigger. I think there are some bigger and then.
Oh, there are. Now that would be different. If this company offered a full mat, that's like 4 by 4 feet or whatever, sure. Then it would be very easy to say, yeah, print one up, but it would probably cost about $600.
It could. Yeah, exactly. All right. And so hello to Raising Hell. Nice to have you here. I can read an archetype in there. And so those of you who might not know Sean S.B. Alger, I am pleased to call him a good friend. We have never met in person, but we've had some connections over the years now, starting pre-pandemic even. Hello, Jenny G. Nice to see you. Glad you're here. And so he currently appears, I get to see Sean every week on the Weaving Spiders webs. And he says almost every Saturday evening, but you guys have been real consistent with Jim Maiden, Ben Balderson, Alan Marcus, and other guests that appear. I was on there one time as well. You guys helped me, did some therapy on me. It worked really good. And Sean has studied and commented on conspiracy, esoterica, parapolitics, and meme culture for some number of years. He's also a releasing coach under the coaching training that I do called Journey Code Certification Program. Very happy to call you a coach. And you can find links to SB's work on his website at www.sbalger.com. So there's the URL that I was searching for before. I'm going to pop that in.
That's the easiest one. I mean, I'm a admitted absolute social media junkie, permanently online type of person. There may be a day when that changes, but for now it's still true. So you can find me on YouTube, Instagram. I mean, I even I had to relent and finally give in and make a TikTok. I didn't have to, but I put it off for a very long time, and I still don't really. That's where the generation gap shows for me. Like, this thing's supposed to catch up and make me an algorithm that I like, and I keep liking and adding, and stop trying to put me on live streams. It's so much sales on there. I don't know if you're on there or not, Beth. If not, just stay away. It's not good for you.
I know. Yeah. I did create an account, and it's luring because you do get traction pretty fast compared to other platforms. Yeah. You get all of a sudden there's 800 views, and you just went on went on TikTok. But now I'm locked out. They won't let me back in. It's caught in some kind of loop, and I can't post there anymore. So
no.
I know.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people that have made, 2 or 3 accounts before they feel like they've had success, which to me, there's a psychological edge there that I can't get over in life a lot of time. I tell people that, most of wrenching on a car is psychological, like you're looking at the car, it's sitting flat on the ground. You have to pick it up off the ground to get underneath it. You have to get underneath it. You're going to get dirty. You're not guaranteed success. So really it's just a commitment. That's one thing I learned from you early on is, if you check your level of commitment to anything that you're about to do, if you find that it's less than 100%, if you can adjust it up to 100%, then that'll all change, in your diet, that piece of buttered bread, you can change your mind pretty easy if you remember, hey, I was 100% committed to not doing this. So now am I going to do it? Like, no, I can't.
You got it. That's such a huge part. Yeah, no, I ask people, anyone that is considering to work with me, I always ask how committed they are, not to me, but to their own process and transformation. And, you can get that 7 out of 10. It's like, well, that's okay, but it ain't going to take you through the hard stuff. And this definitely can feel and be seen to be the hard stuff, although there's an equal amount of freedom on the other side of anything difficult. So I'll just finish telling people, like you said, you can find them on various social media, and we share that quality kind of junkie over here as well. I enjoy it. I feel very on purpose with it. It doesn't suck the life out of me for the most part, but I can get trapped too. Lastly, Sean is hoping that you or someone is needing a one-of-a-kind shower curtain that you might choose from his selection of 80 or more custom curtains by his profile. Like I said, that I found the perfect one. I loved that art, the depth of that heart and the intricacy, but the simplicity, that like how those two qualities get married. I loved it, but it was not the color of my bathroom. So he tweaked it and changed it so that it'll be perfect in there. Nobody sees my shower, so I just want you to know it's just for me.
Well, so to me, that makes it special too, that it's then it's a private thing. And so like I was saying to the other guy who said his piece of art that he bought is just sitting on his desk. But I mean, if that's the place, I mean, to me, the main thing with visual art is if you're going to put it someplace where you can at least see it, and so that you're redundantly seeing it, that reminds you of whatever reason there was to be attracted to the whole thing in the first place,
Exactly. You got it. Yeah. It's for that pleasure's sake. And just, I was looking at my current shower curtain and it's got the words of, we'll get off shower curtains pretty soon, but it's got the words water in various different languages. And I thought like, wow, what an upgrade I'm going to be getting here.
Well, to me, the one after we modified it, this one still says water very much too,
Oh, it does. Exactly. Yeah. It's mermaidy. I was actually just on that interview with Matt Presti I was talking about, and he made me get into the mermaids. So I'm kind of a little bit more inspired in that water element, the emotional underworld, and the water that tends to make up the plasma of our inner experience. And so yeah, it's all good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Benjamin's in the house. We got a hail to everybody. RMA SB, you guys have something in common there, RMA. And one more quarter. It's a good day to you. And speaking of water, have you seen Veda Austin's new book? I haven't seen the book, but I have been following, and her last interview on The Way Forward with Alex Seck was very inspired. And I wove that into my interview when he had me on as well. So yeah, game changer. Absolutely. Really fun to consider. And I'll quickly say I'm going to have Daniel David Oskopensky on to talk about water and his revelations of how consciousness and water and the birth of creation comes through that marriage of spirit and water. So that's all I'll say for that right now. And so today we were going to talk about a very specific subject, and it's on toxic codependency. So this is a phrase that I am actually very familiar with from my childhood, because I grew up in a world where there was addiction, and there was also, the remedy for addiction, like although, that wasn't for me, the AAs, but say the adult children of alcoholics and that whole
Al-Anon.
Al-Anon also exactly for the relationships. And codependency is a very big subject there. And it's interesting with all my deep dive on the nurturer archetype, how I haven't even thought to say that word. So it was so perfect when you and I planned this stream and you suggested this as a focus, because it's a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, it just you said, "Hey, I'm not sure. I'm kind of drawing a blank," and it just popped into my head like the most obvious thing, because all those things that you said are definitely true in my life and in my family history. Lots of lots of drug, alcohol, and other addiction too, food addiction, whatever. I mean, we can move the unhealthy addictive behavior into almost any category. That's why we're both joking about being addicted to social media, but it's not a joke. If we had to quit cold turkey tomorrow, we'd be feeling weird. We'd be reaching for a phone that's not there. We'd be imagining what's happening online. We have a huge fear of missing out, and all this
Yeah.
stuff. My
Yeah.
phone, I broke my phone trying to help my mother fix an ancient chair that it's funny. I feel like I won the battle. My little sister has been trying to get rid of this chair because it's getting old and worn out. Me and my friend that I used to work for in the wheelchair back in the day, I was his caregiver. And a lot of the time he wouldn't pay me. He would just take me and get me whatever I wanted, which, at that time was okay. Looking back, that really wasn't a very healthy financial relationship for me to be working for him, but that way. But we went and got like the nicest gliding, swiveling metal rocking chair from the furniture store, like $500 probably 25 years ago. So now it'd probably be a $2,000 chair, and the bearings had gone out. So it would turn one way really rough. But then if it got stuck, you would have to stand up and turn it all the way in one direction. And so, while I was local in the area where my mom was and staying with her, I went and got bearings from like a tractor supply company and knocked it apart with a hammer and fixed them. And in the process, when I finally was done and demonstrating that it definitely would work, my little pug decided he was going to attempt to mark the chair as complete with his urine. And so when I yelled at him, I dropped my phone and it broke the screen, And so then it was like
tragic.
5 or 7 days, and I was on the road, so I had to travel. So then you're in the dilemma of not being able to stay in regular touch with whoever, I'm leaving my mother behind. I'm going to join my lady at home. I can't communicate easily, try to do something to make sure you can communicate, So to me, it was like, we're back to 1993. Like, hey, I'm leaving. I'll see you whenever I get there. In a way, I miss that. And it took me a few days, but then I started to adjust to the idea. The one thing I did have trouble with is I had to go to the secondhand stores and buy some CDs of audiobooks, especially with the long distance traveling. Like, it hit me like a real pang of panic. Like, 5 hours and what, I'm going to listen to AM radio? No way. There's just no way. All the advertising, there's no way I can handle it anymore. I can't listen to advertising. I used to ping back and forth between what we would have called back in the day the left wing and right wing channels, So I would listen to Michael Savage and Rush Limbaugh, and then I would change over to NPR, and I don't remember, there was some other one, but there's no way I could do that, So I bought some weird books on tape. I bought it was really funny, Beth. So I was like, okay, this sounds good. It was like about somebody putting some kind of sickness inside the energy drinks. So it was creating a mind control scenario, right? And I'm like, okay, well, this sounds up my alley, strange conspiracy, intelligence agency type stuff. And so I'm starting listening to it, and it's pretty weird. And so, I stop and read the back, and it's from the Latter-day Saints. The author is a Mormon. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? So I listened to the whole thing anyway, but, it was a very strange angle and perspective instead of like a typical for mass consumption conspiracy book. It's like, oh no, this is like a Latter-day Saint specific.
There you go. Well, that's a good demonstration. We might need 2 podcasts to really cover this, but the demonstration up between the public and the private, like every time I go into the public, it's getting harder and harder for me. And things are quote unquote normal. Like, there's no forcing of masks and injections at the moment, but somehow it's so random, and your meetings are random, and yes, there can be divine intervention, but like a quick sad story at Costco the other day, we got into line before some lady, and we didn't realize how offended she was, but that we got there. We just got there. We're not even noticing really her. But then she starts like bumping me from behind with her card. And then, like, the second she had half an inch to put her stuff on, she's like almost shoving our stuff out of the way. And then she's still, and I'm like getting further and further away from her. And then next thing you know, she's on my, like at my shoulder, and she coughs in my hair.
Oh my gosh.
I know, and it was a real mind fuck, Sean, because I wanted to scream something about a pandemic, but I can't do it because I don't believe in it. You know what I mean?
Use the turn the weapons of the system back on themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, something. I was too twisted in there, and I just turned around and said, like, "Did you just cough in my hair?" I said it as loud as I possibly could, so everyone would hear. And it's just, and then my son's going like, "Mom, tone it down a little bit. We're just gonna leave now." And he's good. He regulates me in public, but I just found
me and my lady do that for each other too. We'll both notice if the other person is feeling short and ready to snap at someone, and then intervene on their behalf and say, "Hey, let's just increase our patience and tolerance for whatever this world is out here." Like you said, in the public, anything literally could happen at any time. And yeah, I mean, if someone coughed directly into my hair and I thought it was on purpose, I might have a really hard time not making a scene, like a real scene. Like,
yeah, it was gross. I felt that for a long time. It was an aggressive cough. It was
yeah. Well, so I mean, to me, that situation, like, it's nice if you can notice when it's happening. Like, I will totally let people go in front of me. If they seem offended, I will insist. Like, go. I don't care if you have way more groceries than me. I'll go to a different line. I don't care.
If I realized what was happening,
right.
Oh, please, I just need to get through fast. And I mean, we're not your typical Costco. We come out with 2 or 3 things. We're not like shopping cart people.
$2,000. I know.
Yeah. It used to be when I was scared that the store wouldn't have stuff the next day. But I'm like, let's just keep it even. So back to our topic here, and how does it? What is it from a relationship with somebody who's an addict that creates this state of toxic codependency? How do you see that happening?
Well, okay, so if you're talking about specifically being in a relationship with someone who's struggling with addiction, especially drugs or alcohol, I would say what creates the toxic, I mean, codependency is unhealthy, I wouldn't say it's not. That? Yeah, let's look it up too, because I'm curious. Okay. But I mean, because I would say in general in the world, the regular unenlightened normie world, we're not going to have any chance in hell of getting rid of regular old codependency. It may be managed, it's kind of like weeds or do you have any morning glory on your property? Do you know what that is? It's kind of a beautiful viney flower, It does. I mean, and it's pretty.
Yeah.
But you have to yank it out all the time. You just have to yank it out all the time, because otherwise it gets onto your other viney plants and it wants to climb up, or it just wants to choke things out. And so I would say that's a pretty good comparison, that most of us have some level of codependency, and I wouldn't necessarily call it 100% unhealthy. It's good to be aware of it, but I'd say it becomes toxic because when someone is struggling under the weight of addictions, what happens is the person who's closest to them typically ends up doing things for them that otherwise they would definitely do for themselves. And it's a pretty solid rule I have in my life, that if someone doesn't have a physical disability or some kind of an illness or a mental health disability that prevents them from doing something, then typically I won't do it for them. I definitely won't do it for them redundantly, and you can't take it to the extreme where you're not willing to run down the stairs and grab someone's phone charger for them and bring it back up to them, just because you can. Maybe they've just had a long day and they want to rest, and they just finally got to their position. And we all know that feeling of not wanting to reverse the inertia. I made it. I'm laid down. My shoes are off. My dog is nearby. Oh man, I forgot one thing, So of course that's an exception to the rule if you want to show kindness and do that. But then if it develops into you always run and always do the thing for them all the time, at that point, that's the beginning of what I would call an unhealthy, codependent relationship. Now they're anticipating being taken care of in a position where really they are absolutely capable of doing it themselves. So the reason I think that drug and alcohol addiction convolutes and clouds it is because just having that condition in your life creates situations where you're debilitated or inebriated to the point where you're not functional. So there becomes this sine wave of gray area. If you use the example of an old 1950s man who drinks too much, and and the woman is under his charge, she's pretty much his property, or it seems that way, then she's obliged to have to take care of him when he shows up bombed out, blackout, drunk, and then still obliged to make sure he's taken care of in the morning, and maybe even obliged to call and make excuses at work for why he's going to be late, or any of these types of things. And all of those things are genuinely things that he can do for himself, even if he's going to maintain his addictions,
Right. And one of the effects is that you're trying to save them from the consequences of the addiction in this example, right? So
Right.
if you don't call the boss and make an excuse for him, well, then maybe they're going to fire his ass. But if he can keep on getting by this way, having a second person show up in a way that he should be showing up, then it actually, the word is enabling. It further
Right.
disables that person, and it's really tricky from the codependent side. They end up, one of the phrases I think I came up with, that like, they might not be the primary addict, but they're an addict nonetheless in that relationship, and they can have the illusion that it's all that person's problem. They have all the issues to work on. I don't have any issues to work on. So I'll just keep on focusing on that person. And usually it's double-edged, like you're helping them, but you're also maybe, nagging them in a low extreme, in a high extreme, maybe like beating up on them, putting them down, right?
Right.
So
It becomes that cycle. What's the famous abuse cycle is, abuse, reunion, apology, honeymoon period, and then back to, and
I'll never do it again.
right, right, exactly, and so in the codependent person's position, it's really easy to have this internal dialogue that's telling you that your position is actually the best one and you're okay, but that's not necessarily true. It doesn't mean, if we were really going to get down to brass tacks, that person's as bad off as the person who is almost losing their job, they're blacking out, or being debilitated from drug and alcohol abuse. Okay, so sure, we can say that that's worse, and the codependent person is typically able to function and manage the household and still work their job or whatever. But the negative side on the codependent side is still very important to recognize and increase your awareness around, so that you don't imagine. I mean, it's the classic trope, right? Like, what happens? You finally get the intervention to happen. You get the best doctor or team in the world that's going to help this person. Maybe they're huffing the cleaner from Staples, the air cleaner, all day, and they're just out of their mind. And the doctor and their team says, "That's great. All right, we're going to help them. But first, we need to talk to you guys about how we're going to help all of you too." And everyone goes, "No, fuck you. I'm out. See you later. I quit. I'm done. I don't need any help. It's them that needs help, not me." And this is always wrong. We're always in the situation as a group together, and not, there's always room to increase your awareness of your own behavior, look at yourself, and change the things that you're going to do. And it all comes down to boundaries. That's the first thing I wrote down. What's the boundary? How do you set a boundary with someone who, if you don't enable them the way you have been, they might die or worse? And yes, there are things worse than death. I know a lady from an Al-Anon meeting that said she had a counselor, her son was a full-blown alcoholic, and the counselor finally talked her into not being codependent, not enabling, not helicoptering over this man, and he was an adult, he wasn't a child. And so she went with it. She's like, "All right, you're right. I have to just risk whatever's going to happen and allow the results to come no matter what." And the man got hit by a car and had a head injury and became completely debilitated, so that he needed permanent in-home caregiving. And as far as I know, he also continued to at least try to drink and use drugs. So, I mean, that's reality, Sure. Well, it may be true that you have to take that risk and say, "I'm going to set a boundary," but you have no idea what result the boundary is going to bring. There's no guarantee that it's this healthy, happy outcome. Most of the time, in my experience, it's a healthier, it's a better outcome, usually. Uncomfortable. It's like you have to reinforce it all the time. A boundary is not a thing that you can set and say, "Cool, now I have one." It's something you have to police all the time, and there's always new ways to encroach on it. And, especially with drug addicts and alcoholics, you know, I don't really like the disease model, but, you know, if you're using that Alcoholics Anonymous idea that it's a disease, you know, they call it a lascivious disease, right? It angles in. The position changes so that what used to work doesn't work. So now we try a new thing and a new thing. And so your boundary has to be alive. It has to be moving all the time. And ideally, you have to stay in love in your heart.
Okay, you just said the whole punchline right there, that what most people think are boundaries are actually policies. And when it comes down to it, policies don't work because they're not about the present moment as it is alive in this time. It is about some past, probably grievance where you made a fence and you built a wall or you built a whatever and said like, here's my boundary, and you go around announcing it to everybody. But like you said, especially people that have no boundaries, and that is a classic example of someone who's severely addicted. I think especially to alcohol, maybe not exclusively by any means, just because the alcohol is a boundary dissolver, you know, both
Right.
energetically.
That's why people like it.
Yes, and the cellular.
They feel self-conscious and overthinking and uncertain, and they don't have the confidence, you know, so it's a lubricant for conversation. It makes you more willing to be yourself, or, you know, be yourself, whatever self is also, you know, tuned into the whatever the alcohol is, you know.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. And then so the real boundaries, it's like you say, it is a risk. It's like going for freedom. It's like all of the best things in say when you're in a relationship and you decide that you are going to grow and heal, whether or not that person is going to grow and heal with you, you're just committing, this is what I'm here for. And the risk is that because boundaries are totally polarizing, right? So they're going to create this choice for that person that person might not have perceived before. Like either they're going to come along and grow and heal with you, or they're going to fall themselves completely away or get into a worse accident than ever and end up even more dependent. Then it polarizes you. Do I stay with this person who's in so much more trouble than they were before I set a boundary, or not? I hope they didn't, but
Well, that woman, I mean, she was still very much involved in her son's life. This was many, many years
her
ago.
son. Well, it is different, actually.
Yeah, for children, it's very different. You know, if it's your
Yeah.
own child, then it's a whole new set of rules. In regular relationships, be it romantic or otherwise, I would say you have really a much better opportunity to establish and manage a clear boundary. Whereas with your children, I mean, no one can look from the outside and imagine what it's like. You can't even if you have children, you can't put yourself in the other person's position, you know, of what it means. It's easy from the outside to judge and say, oh, well, that's obviously very bad. They should cut them off. But this is the most powerful connection you have on earth, you know?
Yep, exactly. And I totally take it back because you don't know what is happening for any individual situation. It's why I'm not an advice giver. I don't tell people like, oh, leave your husband or leave your child, or how could I ever possibly do that? And, first of all, that's taking responsibility away from that person and their free will and their ability, their capability that I'm kind of taking away from them or making it appear like it's not there. And Saturn in retrograde is on topic with the boundaries. Interestingly, how that happens.
Saturn is the final boundary before the edge of the sky. You know, Saturn's the creator of time. You know, there's not a stronger boundary than that clock ticking over your head, right? Even if it is just the sun and moon moving. And I would say what you said about advice, really, to me, that was the beginning. You know, I had a counselor many, many years ago. I don't even remember her name. And she gave me the famous books about boundaries. I think it's Townsend and someone else. You know, they're Christian authors, but they're just like your entry level, like, hey, you know, here's some, and it really helped me. But, you know, so what do you realize? Like, oh, like I still do it now, but I really try to catch myself and notice, like, am I volunteering information as advice to people without them asking me to? You know, like, do I like it? You know, if Beth calls tomorrow and says, you know, SB, I figured it out for you. I see where you're at. I know where you need to go. Here's the steps. If you get on it, it'll be better. Like I'm not going to be receptive to that at all. I'm going to be like, well, I guess me and Beth really aren't friends anymore because I can't tolerate that kind of behavior, right? But so am I doing it? That's a thing to catch, to notice. Is your natural, comfortable codependency becoming something where you imagine an ideal life for some other person or an ideal situation, and now because you've narrowed down the options, you see the path to get there? Well, nobody enjoys this when it's happening to them. So if you can catch yourself, and even if it's just to be quiet, it's such a help. And especially if people are struggling with drugs and alcohol, of course, that's all they hear all day long, is that people imagine, they're drinking all day, every day for a reason. If they could figure it out and stop, they probably would,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And it's a real Gordian knot to try to figure it out. And a lot of the time people know. I confronted a guy who good friend of mine, moved him into my house, and he wasn't really like functioning as a roommate, and that was kind of the plan. And so I confronted him because I knew what, and I'm not going to say it because I really doubt he would ever see this, but I'm just not going to say what the specific details were. But I was aware of what had affected him when he was young. And I confronted him like, well, are you going to dig into that? Are you going to deal with it? Are you going to do something about it? And he's like, no, I'm not willing to do that. I was like, not ever? He's like, I don't know, but I'm definitely not willing to. It's like, then you got to move out, because I see you've made a justification for some area where now you're allowed to have contradiction in your life around this certain area. And as soon as you do that, you're in danger of suffering worse fate. It's like wanting to only hear one part of the song over and over again, You can't just keep rewinding the guitar solo and expect it's no longer a song. Now you're playing some kind of weird game with yourself, but you're no longer listening to a song. The song has all of its parts. And it ends also, there's an ending. And that's, if you make exception, especially an exception that's contrary to reality. I know I have hurt, but I'm not willing to look at it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to fix it. I refuse, period, And, some people are devolving. You got to get out of their way. It's really sad and it sucks. And it is a huge risk. It could cost them much worse for you to stop offering them even codependent help, but it comes back to the individual on the other side. Are you willing to stay stuck with them and, lie or omit? It's a hard decision. It's not easy.
Yes, exactly. And what nurturers, the archetype that's kind of in the background, what we're talking about here, nurturers don't realize that they're giving the very best chance to that person who is struggling to find a new track or a new path or make new choices or decisions. Because as long as you're just trying to clean up the mess behind them and make things appear good, this is a very big thing about in this extreme case, the nurture shadow of codependency, where you're trying to pretend nothing is happening, nothing is wrong, make it as smooth and glossy on the outside as possible. That means that person can't be seen by their community. They couldn't receive help from any other place but that one secret relationship that's taking care of things. And then they themselves can be locked in because those relationships are extremely tangled. And
enmeshment. I wrote down the word enmeshment.
Right.
To me, enmeshment is so it's fine. That's why I would say that codependency is pretty normal. The idea that we're interlocked and we have, to me, I think a therapist said to me one time, it's more like this as opposed to like this. This is enmeshment. You're completely tangled up. Now it's really hard to get undone. But if you can come together this way, and I don't know, to me, a good sign of enmeshment is if you feel like you can't do something that you do want to do or that you would just be able to do, but you can't, I can't eat dinner without my spouse. I'm not able to. Like, well, why? What's stopping you? Like, well, we always do it together and there's a ritual and a routine that can only be accommodated together. Like, well, that's not really true, those kind of things.
Exactly. And one of the things that I think is really at the heart of this dynamic and that holds it in place is pain. The thing that nobody wants to feel, nobody wants to talk about or acknowledge for the most part. I shouldn't say nobody. My friends more so tend to be brave like that. And it's the gatekeeper of freedom itself. So that's, to me, one of the cures, just seeing that, yeah, there is some pain to go through, but it is always proportionate to the scale of freedom on the other side, and ends up very worth it. It doesn't go away by itself, right? Like, it just stays stored and pocketed, maybe obscured from you or other people, but it doesn't stop being an influence.
Right. I mean, pain is the main thing. Everyone's got a default setting. We were kind of born into it in the whatever age we're in. The default setting is to imagine yourself obtaining comfort or happiness and it's not actually realistic if we're honest about the world that we're in.
That's the biggest sign ever, that we're here to be happy. It doesn't mean we're here to be miserable, but this happiness.
Yeah, the idea that you're gonna find some way to create a situation where you're not impinged upon, you're not interrupted, you're not inconvenienced, you're especially not hurt emotionally or physically, is just not true. We all know that it's not true in our heart of hearts, but we still act as if, and acting as if you're going to maintenance and maintain like some reasonable level of comfort and uninterruptedness, and especially no pain, is just insane. It's an insane ideal to have. Mm-hmm. And so
what's your take on the Buddha saying that it's all pain?
I mean, I understand the idea that it's, that life is suffering, attachment is suffering. I would say there is some truth to that. There's definitely truth in it. I guess my caveat would be that it's sometimes what you want is pain. And so then that becomes a slippery slope too, so that you don't fetishize pain and then become addicted or interested in actually inflicting or receiving pain.
Yeah.
And, I don't mean in a sexual way. Obviously people do take it that far, but lots of people are stuck in a victim mindset that allows them to redundantly feel that reminder, oh, I wasn't invited. Oh, whatever happened. I'm the odd duck. I'm the one that, especially in the conspiracy and truther movements, right? We're all the outcasts. So we're happy to wear our outcast hat. We believe the earth is flat, and there was definitely more than one guy in the JFK shooting, et cetera, and on down the list. So that affords us opportunity to be offended every time we walk into the gym and CNN is on, or every time we go to our grandparents' house and they're playing Fox News. Now we can feel that as pain, instead of being compassionate towards it all, which is very hard. I'm not saying it's easy to have compassion towards the contrary and dishonest world. It's not. It's hard. But it's a better position than playing some kind of I'm the subtle victim game.
Right.
And we just only do really what we're comfortable to do. Me and Ben Balderson were talking about that with, what was it? Honey? I think it was honey. I could be wrong. He could correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. But the idea that, I think it was honey in the coffee. Like, so you switch, I went through this process. Okay, I'm going to stop putting milk in my coffee because I'm going to eliminate milk. Okay, so now eventually I'm going to stop putting sugar in my coffee. So now I drink black coffee almost all the time. And if I get sweetened coffee, it tastes pretty weird to me. But sometimes I'll still sweeten it up, or I'll use stevia or something. But if I put as much milk and sugar as I used to put in there, then it doesn't taste right to me at all. But back then, when that's the way I took it every day, drinking black coffee was impossible, right? Like, it was disgusting, bitter, gross. So sometimes it's just a matter of shifting into the uncomfortable space and waiting through the process,
Exactly. It's kind of like you perceive the fire, or here, I'll use a better example, is that when you're on the surface of the ocean and a wave comes up, you could get like crushed and schmucked completely. And that is a fact, Jack. I know I've tested the theory many times. But if you see the wave coming, you got a little bit of a heads up, a little bit of willingness to look in. And then if you dive right into the wave, right inside it, right under, you're actually part of the wave. And it doesn't nearly become like, yes, it's a big experience as a full body kind of thing, and like, where are we going to end up in this wave? But it's not the smash and crash kind of thing. So that's a good metaphor for people.
No, it's a great. I mean, surfers. I've never been a surfer, but I know that surfers, when they're trying to get out past the breaking waves, they use their board to duck dive underneath the big wave. And it's not like it's zero liability, that could mess you up too, but it's not going to mess you up the same as standing there on the beach with your back to that big wave. Like we've all seen, the 3-year-old do first time at the beach, they're running back to mom and they're so happy and nobody's paying attention to the fact that here comes the ocean going to give you that reverse high five,
That's a good way to say it. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
We're afraid of that kind of thing happening to us physically and metaphorically for the rest of our lives if we don't confront it. That's, to me, the wave metaphor works.
Exactly. Yeah. And it literally hijacks your freedom because that pain is freedom in disguise. And I'll say that different ways. It's your power in disguise. It's just, by all appearances, and you can't even argue with anybody, if you're brave enough to feel your own pain, when you feel it, it's a showstopper, right? Like that, that is, I was joking with myself last night because the first class of the Nurture Cure course I've got coming up, we're going to focus on the pain. And I'm thinking like, oh, they're all going to cheer like, yay, we get to focus on our pain. Yeah, woo! Like this. And, but I know, I could also feel bad, like, oh, I'm going to make them feel bad. Fortunately, I don't have that fear anymore because I've seen enough people go through to the other side of their pain, find that freedom, and it becomes so incredibly worth it. And you start gaining resilience. Like Ben was saying, the society is debilitated by the thought of pain, and they will go to every extent, whether it's the drugs or the painkillers or the distraction or, like sacred purpose, that's all pain. Every single time you're called to grow, you're going to grow out of your comfort zone. That hurts, right?
Yeah.
But it's
it's the only way we grow. I mean, as much as people all want to hate it and not address it,
Yeah, exactly.
We don't grow by getting lots of accolades and attaboys, high five, good job. You're so good at this. It feels great. People love it, but you're not going to get growth from that experience.
Exactly.
Adversity, suffering, some kind of challenge is what's going to allow you to level up. And we all know it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So discomfort. And then there's the distinction I like to share is the difference between purposeless and purposeful pain, right? The pain of growth, very purposeful. You got a clear trajectory there, but there's a lot of the world can create utterly meaningless and purposeless pain.
Yeah, I'd say that's the hardest for people to get their head around, especially if they're addicted to the pain.
Well, this is the other side. Exactly what I was thinking. Exactly. Yeah. What did you mean, Ben?
Or want to be controlled, right? I know that not everybody in the audience is familiar with the release system and the process that we both are, but everyone can relate to a want for control. It's pretty easy so the opposite, the polarity of that is a want to be controlled. And most people immediately knee jerk like, well, I don't want to be controlled. Like, are you sure? How many situations do you have in your life where actually you're very comfortable under, if you live in an HOA and you move to where Ben's living out in the middle of nowhere, you're going to desire to have some of that level of management that the HOA was offering, as opposed to me and the machete and the sun's a setting and the coyotes are coming, because that level of control that was in place, you were underneath people's, authority. As much as we act like we all hate authority, really, there's lots of authority that's doing nothing but offering you comfort and safety from whatever's on the other side of it, as they all found out with the defund the police movement, right? You can only defund so many police departments before now you're saying, well, no one's stopping these gangsters from running amok and shooting up the town and robbing everybody blind and dealing massive amounts of drugs on the corner. What do we do? I guess you refund the police and wait. I don't know. You get a militia group and vigilante justice and start bonking people on the heads. You tell me, what do you do?
Exactly. Yeah. And what people don't realize is when they don't want something, they're equally wanting it. They tend to come as a pair. So if you think that you don't want to be controlled, you'll find that inside yourself, that want to be, in fact, controlled. And so it's all twisty. That's what I noticed with the archetypes, that you can go very deep into them inside yourself, and you can learn the patterns on the outside and see, that's such a great, to me, inheritance, that so much work has been done in archetypes to map out the qualities. I've done my fair share of that, looking internally to see what exactly is the modus operandi of these archetypes. Not that they're alive, you know that, just that we filter our life through them. And
I don't think it's necessary to reify archetypes and make them into something. It's not that I think they have zero living energy either. I think it's we start to tip over the edge into metaphysics and philosophy if we start to really address that issue. But I would say what you said to actually be able to figure out which archetype you're actually in touch with, and then compare that to where other people may or may not be, even if it's just your opinion, your own assessment that could be wrong. But, like if you notice that someone really doesn't have a lot of nurturer and that you definitely are, then that changes your whole panel of settings for how you're going to deal with the situation, where you're going to be willing to help. This is where you can identify the hole in your boat, that if someone's toxic, but it's not a toxic nurturer, they're toxic in some other category, say a toxic king, the king archetype. Exactly. If they're tyrannical about trying to take advantage of what you have to offer, then your management of that boundary becomes a lot steeper challenge, but the reward is that much greater, because if you can tell the tyrant, hey, no, fuck you, no, absolutely no. And not just no one time and I'm slamming the door and locking the key, but no, I'm still here. I'm not going to do anything to defend or protect myself. I'm just going to keep telling you no. Like, it's still, the answer hasn't changed. No, like, no, I can't give you a ride. No, I can't loan you $20. No, you can't take my sister to the mall. No, right? Whatever. Then that's what's to me, that's the real benefit of studying and understanding archetypes, is that I'd say that we don't realize that we all kind of fall in under them no matter what. Like, I guess with astrology, people kind of see it that way, I know you and I are both Scorpios, so it's easy to default to our sun sign energy, or, if you add depths and layers to that and people are familiar with it, then it starts to make sense, I'm Scorpio with a Leo Leo rising. So then all of a sudden my archetype underneath astrology starts to make sense. But that one doesn't work for everyone. Astrological signs, a lot of people think it's just balderdash anyway, right? So, maybe you move to things like the Myers-Briggs scale or the Enneagram. I recently bought a book that I'm fascinated to read and learn about, where there's body types and archetypal energies inside the Enneagram. And the original work of the Enneagram came from Gurdjieff, the fourth way guru. He probably wouldn't want to be called a guru, but it's a good stereotypical name. And people don't realize that it's not just a tool. It's like everything else. It becomes diluted. So the Enneagram comes... He claims, I think it came through Eastern mysticism or Sufism or something, that's the origin of it. And it's supposed to be so that you can identify where you are in those, your body type and your personality type are kind of assigned at birth, for lack of a better way to look at it. And the original purpose was to notice that so that you could understand how to grow out of it and become something else, how to recognize when you're automatically triggered, So someone who's a martial type, they kind of have back to the tyrant idea, right? If you have a martial type, that means they have Mars energy. They've kind of got a soldierly, like the dad who's a drill sergeant has a martial energy about him. So he defaults to that. Whenever he sees things aren't in line, then he's going to jump up and, give commands and command and control, make things happen. But ideally, he can grow out of that and notice the feeling that he's getting ready to marshal everybody around. And maybe it's the 4th of July picnic and it's not necessary because everyone's just relaxing and there's no need to marshal anyone anywhere. And you can say, hey, there's that energy. There's my archetypal energy. It's coming out. And you can say, nope. Instead, I'm going to observe the feeling of it. And ideally, I'm going to let it dissipate. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to allow the feeling to come up. There it is. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to go marshal everyone around. And maybe I'm also not going to let it affect my attitude for the rest of the days, because we see that too. Like, you catch yourself, you don't do the thing that you were triggered to do, but then now you've got a chip on your shoulder for the next 2 days or something, because you were going to tell those kids to stop playing with the fireworks when they're drunk, but you didn't. So now you're in some pride scenario in your head where you did a good job at not being an asshole or something.
I said a lot there. Well, people are professionally trained to suppress, right?
Absolutely.
We're learned from the get-go how to stuff. And there can be limits, especially when you get some like high octane power of that king or tyrant kind of energy. And yeah, that can boil over. And the real, to me, trajectory with working with the archetypes is to see that you have choices through those patterns, and that you can make them consciously rather than having it be as if you're being used by that archetype, that it's your enemy, it's using you, it's like forcing you against your will. It feels like it, right?
Right.
When you act
You're
on
both
shadows.
sides, or you're in the archetype and you love it. Nothing makes you happier than being the drill sergeant, being in charge, and getting results by, or it doesn't have to be that. The tyrant is a really easy example to use. The nurturer, you do the same thing. You love everybody so much and provide so much chicken soup and so many pillows that now you're still a different kind of tyrant.
Ooh, very well said, right? Like, and that's because
And everyone feels guilty and ashamed, and they have a hard time telling you no, refusing any of your requests, because you've done such an excellent job of providing cookies and cake and, a shoulder to cry on and everything else, that now people feel obliged under your energy to have to do what they're, and then to me, that includes all the passive aggressiveness too. So that's a big part of codependence and nurturer stuff is, can you be forthright? That it's hard. It's not easy. It's hard, especially if someone's, disabled or under addictions.
Yeah, it's really gross actually when nurturers are so deep in the shadow that they're looking after somebody with all the, like, I think cookies and cream on the outside, all the nicey nice and the pillows and the chicken soup and all that kind of stuff. But underneath it is like a killer, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to control you. They're trying to have power over you. They're trying to maintain that you're not them, or they're not you, and that you have a position in their life and needed. This is one of the skills I'm teaching, how to let go of that need to be needed, because
Right.
it's really not clean at all, right? It is manipulation. And sometimes you can see yourself doing it, but you can't stop the pattern for some reason. The reason is that it's hooked by programming, and it has a certain momentum, and you've breathed life into it, and you'll keep going on automation until you decide, okay, this is going to stop.
Oh, no, that's back to the fear and pain side of it. Okay. So if you get to your point where you realize it's not okay, and so you start to just peek underneath the covers, you're gonna take the first layer of onion skin off, and all the alarms go off. And what do they say? You're gonna die. You're literally going to die. We installed these fail-safe programs in your psyche when you were young to help you, and if you unravel them, you will definitely die. And it's a lie. It's not true. You won't die. You'll actually improve, and you'll feel some suffering and pain, and then you'll find yourself leveling up in a way that you never imagined was possible, because you went past, like the other day, Beth, I bought a tool. It's called a porta power. It's like a fancy jack. Like we put up our shed in the backyard. We kind of, me and my lady we made a plan to do it right. And when we started to do it right, we saw it was a lot of work. So we did it kind of half-ass on purpose. And then, of course, we suffered the consequences for it. And the shed's kind of sagging. And so I've got it picked up on bricks on one side and everything. And I went and bought a porta power, which is kind of a fancy jack. It's got all kinds of adapters and stuff it's really for body work with cars. It allows you to expand or push things. And it wasn't working, Here I spent $100. It came in the mail. We want the shed to be ready so we could actually put the stuff in it, so it's not all out in the weather. And I'm pumping on this thing. I'm adding oil. I'm doing all the things. And there's a red cap I notice covering up a screw, and it says, "Do not adjust."
So you did?
Of course. I've done it 5 times to make sure. And of course, I have confidence in myself to understand it's just a hydraulic system. That's it. There's nothing to it. It's not electrical and hydraulic. It's just a hydraulic system. Like, okay. So I turned that thing so it was all the way tight, and then it all worked, But how many people can look, there's a red plastic cap covering up a screw. There's nothing in the instructions that tells you what it is. And so now you're going to adjust it. It says right there, don't touch. Of course, no surprise. I went and told my lady, like, you'd have probably never figured this out, because you'd have had to do right here. It says, don't do this. And then you have to contradict that and do it. And to me, that's a good metaphor for, all the big warning signs in your psyche. They're they're wrong. Your freedom's on the other side of it. That feeling that you want to be actually at peace and not be triggered is on the other side of it. You can let all that shit go. It's possible.
Exactly. And then it reminds me of, I didn't say it exactly this way, but like your shit isn't in your way, it is the way.
Yeah. That's why the story of the dragon and the hoard of treasure that's why it rings true. I'd say that's why the archetype of the dragon existed, Yeah. You can't just keep walking past the dragon's cave and knowing that everything that's going to solve your problem is in there. You got to go kill him.
Exactly. You have to have the direct experience. You can't just think about this. You can't agree with it. It can't be something that you move around intellectually until you go and you see, because you can say, oh yeah, that program is going to say you're going to die and everything is wrong is going to happen to you. But until you come face to face with that program and you register its signature vibration and message out at you, threatening and warning you and setting off the alarm bells and your whole nervous system and body reacting, then you don't have that direct experience. You can't act on something that's not alive in this moment. And that is a revelation. And it's the revelation that brings about a new choice. Oh, am I going to take instructions from this inanimate automation, or do I want to be free?
Yeah.
Right. But you can't get there just by pushing furniture around on the Titanic.
No, it's a really common thing in any counseling type work for people to be stuck in their head. And the first counselor that really helped me, that was the main thing that she would do. She would just want to talk on the phone, and we're just going to sit here and breathe, and you're going to tell me how you feel. And, for the first 2 or 3 sessions, all of the things I thought were feelings, they weren't my feelings. And she would just drag me back. She'd say, no, I want to know how you feel right now, and she would encourage me to breathe and move into my body, which is a good metaphor. I mean, I guess we really do store memory and thought and feeling in the whole body. People don't believe that. They think it's all here, but that's just, they've just given us lots of bad science. There's men who have had an organ transplanted to save their life. Say they got in a car accident and they had to get a liver. Well, maybe the other guy was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan and he loved to drink, old Milwaukee beer or something. Well, then all of a sudden you have the craving to watch football on TV and cheer. And now you want to, for some reason you always drink whiskey and Coke, but now you have a craving for beer and you don't understand it. It's because the whole body is there providing whatever this experience is. The whole body's involved, It's not just in your head,
Exactly. And water has memory, right? So that's when you think about the brain, like there's no part of your body that isn't water based. Your brain would not be there without the water element. And that's what stores those memories and holds on. I started actually having some revelations around the plasma force state of water, and how in the healing and the deprogramming process, you're actually, at times, I'm very aware of moving plasma. I can feel it, like, it's not the flow of water like a tap, but it can be very effervescent, more, on misty side, but this like bubbling, this blooping up of energy to exit, whether it's up or out.
People have no idea until they've gotten involved in some similar kind of work, but lots of times helping people with a release process, you get belching, you get other gaseous functions of the body, you get all kinds of stuff happening, and you're like, well, what's going on? Like, well, the whole body is reacting to the idea that now you finally decided there's the little dragon that happened to you when you were 6. It screwed you up. Your body installed we got to defend against this for life program. But it's not really true. It was true at the time because there was no other action to take when you're 6, other than to say, we almost fell off the cliff. We can't go close to the cliff anymore. But when you become an adult, you're allowed to get as close to the cliff as you want. In fact, you can throw yourself off the cliff if you choose to. You can even do it safely, And so once you've gotten to the new level, you can take that old program and throw it out. But yeah, the whole body will react,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I know I've gotten a release, because I smile. Like, even if I'm just doing it all by myself, I'm not working with a coach or a friend. Like, okay, I'll go through the process and I'll hit some point. Usually I type it back and forth to myself like 2 people, I'm talking to the I am versus whatever issues SB thinks he's having right now in the temporal world.
Nice.
And usually I'll hit a point where it's like, oh, like there's a sense of relaxation, and unclenching is a good way to describe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
The
feel
breath.
clenched up, in your chest, in your gut, in your head, in your throat. And if you can get a release, that feeling goes away. And it is physiological. The muscles change what they're doing.
They really do. They really do.
People
Yeah.
literally get a broken heart. You have strings attached to the muscles of your heart, and they pull and they're tight. And, people physically die of a broken heart. It's not impossible.
Yes, strangling their own inners. Exactly.
You
Yeah.
see old people, they'll die within 2 weeks of each other of a broken heart all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You got it. Yeah. So then let's see where we want to go with this. I only have a little bit of time left. I have a feeling we should talk again really soon on this podcast because it's so fluid and wonderful to unpack with you. I do want to let people know that on this Wednesday coming up, July 10th, is the beginning of the Nurture or Cure course. And it is a way for those who, now it doesn't have to be this extreme toxic codependency. We're talking about like a spectrum, so to speak. I hate that word now because they abuse that, but it is.
Well, the extreme example really makes it easy to hammer home points.
That's right. Exactly. When you see it in the extreme, it's much more easy to discern the subtleties. What I'm noticing already from the people that are in there in the one advanced session that we did is that they are fairly advanced. It's not people's first rodeo. It's not their first time looking at themselves. It's not their first time feeling things. And as a result, they're able to jump in and take huge risks right from the outset. It's really a huge blessing to me not to that anybody's in there shaking their boots or in resistance. They wouldn't be, because you obviously wouldn't sign up if you're in that place of fear. So if anybody feels called to clean up their boundaries, to get solid boundaries, and to go deeper than just saying no and making policies that don't work in real life and they're not alive, then we are starting on Wednesday at 1 p.m. with weekly classes for 4 weeks. And there's a whole bunch of materials that come along with it, as well as a chance to work with a partner. I actually had one person say they were backing out because of the partners. So I want to let you know that it's not mandatory. I am the house of free will. I can't force you to have a partner. But the thing, God bless them, was that they were worried that they would become dependent. And this is a nurturer shadow. So I almost said, like, you have to.
No, that's proof that they should probably stick with the course regardless. I mean, that's just it. You can't make a policy,
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the sad results, that people will cut themselves off of very important and nourishing relationships because of these codependencies and all of that. My vision for this whole thing is that we live in a world of mutual support and kindness and people taking care of each other, and not just that romantic version, but like with really clean, solid self-awareness in the ability to have the relationship with the other, just rather than you having relationships with your programs.
Here, right. Voluntary and being present, right? Being present and voluntary in your actions at all times. And it sounds so easy, but it's the work. It's the most challenging work you'll ever do in your life.
It is. And the need for the nurturers is growing by the day. Like there's a lot more people falling down for one reason or another, some, real reasons, some fake reasons, or artificial.
It seems like the scripture in the Bible that says, I'm not an end times guy, where I think the end times are always happening, whatever that means. It's a metaphor. It's not a literal thing. But there is a scripture that says something like, in the end times, the love of the world will grow cold and people will become self-centered, and then they'll start to think only of themselves and only do things for themselves. And we definitely see that with the influence of the internet and social media. So of course that's going to tip the scale the other way, to where people who have a healthy compassion and a willingness and an ability to love without expecting, if you're just doing something for someone because there's a benefit in it for you, that's not really love. It might be mutually beneficial, but it's not, real love is just because you can. And
Exactly.
It's not thinking about the outcome,
Exactly. A lot of nurturers are motivated by the high that they get when they help others. And that is a high. It is fake ass energy. That's not the real deal. You are going to crash from that. When you get high, you go down also. And,
You flip to hating people. That's, that's my experience. My ex-wife, she passed away not very long ago now because she never was able to get clean of drugs and alcohol. And I would go from, attaboy, doing such a great job and, setting all these goals and imaginary things that were so good for her until I run out of energy completely. And now I'm just a fucking monster, screaming, yelling, criticizing, swearing, cussing, being, deriding and all these types of things. And then what? And then you go back the other way, like, oh no, that was wrong. Sorry. Let's make a new plan and just do it again and again, and people do that all the time. They think they're doing so much to volunteer and help and do good work. Once again, in the truther movement, we see it all the time, right? Truth, the community. It's not a community. That's just that's people's imagination or a title that they've put on us that isn't really true. That you think you're waking everyone up. You're going to save the world. You're going to stop those horrible Jews. Here they come, Beth. They're going to get us. Their small hats or whatever thing you want to plug in there, some bad guy, maybe it's the MAGA people, right? Those are your new bad enemy. And you're going to save the world by just increasing their intellectual awareness of all the negative side of it. It's nonsense.
Yeah,
doesn't work.
Yeah, and you wake yourself up. That actually gives people around you the best chance. And I don't mean waking up to lies. I mean waking up to the truth inside yourself, seeing
right. Increased awareness of who you really are.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. If you gain mastery there, then maybe people are going to look to you and they're going to treat you like an authority of some kind in a certain area that is organic and natural, not forced. You avoiding your shit so you can go and tell somebody else how to handle theirs.
Yeah, spiritual bypassing, they call it, right? I always like that term. It's very good.
Yeah, it really fits. It really fits. Well, I've so loved this conversation with you, SB. I know we have to make more time. I'm sorry things got a little bit tight today with everything.
Oh, no, it's fine. We'll make time again sometime soon.
I would love that. Yeah, I would love that. And if anybody is feeling ready to handle the patterns, maybe you see them, but you haven't been able to make a dent in them on your own. And the tools that I offer are simple. They can be hard and very direct, meaning that you can't bypass. I mean, you could, you always have your choice. You can always bypass if you want, but this gives you a really big opportunity to not do that and start making some actual change from that root up. So you can tap on that link and I'll put it in some notes below as well. And I wanted to say also that the coaching training is coming up, the Journey Code coaching certification in September. So we're going to be in the 6th round.
Wow.
SB was in number 1.
Yeah, I went back and listened to some of our old coursework to prepare for today, just as a reminder. So that was nice.
Okay, well, you should come in the advanced group because then you can get access to all of the current stuff as well. Things have definitely.
I'm sure there's a lot more.
Yeah, things have evolved. So it's tweaking. It's the same, but there are some substantial changes based on my own growth and awareness. So, yeah, you're always welcome. Hello, Unindoctrinated. I'm sorry, we're just about to end the conversation today. The way I had to book today, it's a little bit of an intense week. And but I think that's all for now. So thank you so much, Sean. I totally appreciate it. Let's make sure.
My pleasure. And don't worry, we're going to be in touch because you haven't received your shower curtain yet, and I want
updates. Exactly. So we should make a date. We should actually make a date for when the shower curtain comes.
Yeah, see, that'd be a fun stream. Yeah.
And then I can show it.
If you're willing to stream from your bathroom, that's your choice.
Exactly. And I want to share again that. Sean is an excellent artist, like so unique. I really have never seen anything like it. And this is a link where you can not only see how you can have his work as a shower curtain, but all kinds of other different things as well. So
yeah, and I'm glad to, if people see my art and they think, hey, that's for me, I want something and none of these are right, people can just always contact me. And I'm glad to, I'm not charging thousands of dollars to produce a piece. It depends on what format we want to print it or create it in. That's the only thing that would affect the price to go up higher, But I mean, if you're just wanting images or something done, you can always just reach out. I'm glad to work. So
yeah, Sean is extremely.
But right now, I'm trying to sell some shower curtains right now, just because I had a whimsy, even 2 weeks. And then Beth bought one. So now it's like, hey, maybe let's just micro niche down into shower curtains for a minute and see what happens, because I want to see them in people's houses. Really, that's the reason.
Yeah, exactly. Functional and being enjoyed every single day. So I do.
Or, you put your pet on there, or your kids, or, your favorite vacation picture, or whatever it might be. To me, that's the idea. Like, I might make a shower curtains only webpage and make sales copy and everything. I haven't committed 100% to that yet, but I might just do that just for fun. So
Nice. It's good and quirky and practical. So. All right, my dears. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I appreciate it. I will be back here sometime pretty soon. I think I'll just say also, I've been alerted that my interview on Luke's Stories podcast, the lifestyle podcast, is coming out tomorrow. So I'm pretty excited about that. Get to meet all his people. That was fantastic to be in Texas. We love Texas. We're trying to move there. So. All right, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thanks again, Sean. Lots of love to you.
yeah, my pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye for now. I'm gonna play an extra. By the way, my son, he is making a bumper. Is that how you call it? Like an intro or extra kind of thing?
Yeah, bumper's a good old-fashioned term.
Okay, so and his channel over on YouTube is called Psycho. Unfortunately, I couldn't get him to not have it be called Psycho.
He's young. He's young.
He's still
Our
young.
first heavy metal band, the name we chose was Necro.
There you go. And are you familiar with a musician, Tim Henson? I think the band is called Polyphia.
Oh yes.
You are.
Your son's trying to learn to play like Polyphia.
Yes.
God bless him.
So check this out if you've got 2 minutes or I think it's one whole minute, and hopefully this sound worked. Please tell me.
Yeah, it's working.
There we go. So I'm a proud mama.
He's very, very advanced level of guitar playing. So
I know, it's like crazy. He's totally.
It's in his DNA.
Something supernatural, yeah, from both spirits.
And SAIKO is a good spelling for psycho too.
Yes, totally. So do you think that'll make a good bumper for the background of the podcast here?
I think so. I don't see why not.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to run with it. Nice. Yeah, I'm excited.
I mean, it's subtle. I mean, it's subtle and good, and it's your boy. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Proud mama.
And you can twist his arm. Say, okay, I've been using that for a year now. I need something original.
Yes. Next level. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Next level. Being slow with him. So, all right. Well, have a beautiful rest of your day, Sean. Thank you so much again.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, you're very welcome. Bye, everyone. I send you a lot of love for today, and we'll see you soon. And shower curtains against, what did Sarah say? Shower curtains against communitarianism.
Communitarianism. Here.
There you go.
That's right. Anti-communitarian shower curtains for the win.
There you go. I got some copy for your website.
That's really funny.
Nice. All right. Have a great day, you guys. Bye for now.